Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Hoenigman coming in from Yokohama, Japan, and this is episode 51 of Blown Speakers. And today we are welcoming back Phil Winkelmann from Columbus, Ohio, or from Cleveland, but currently in Columbus, right, Phil?
That's right, man. Always Cleveland.
And yeah, always Cleveland, right? And we're welcoming first time Tom Gray coming in from Cleveland. How's it going, Tom?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And today we are going to talk about, just a moment. Okay, yes, and today we're going to talk about Suicidal Tendencies 1983 self-titled debut album. For those of you who don't know, Suicidal Tendencies formed in 1980 in Venice, California, right? So Venice is part of LA or close to LA, is that right?
Yeah, suburb.
Suburb of LA.
Yeah, never been there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a little south of downtown.
Okay.
So it's like, it's Dave, for us. It would be like Yellow Springs of Dayton.
Okay. Uh-huh.
It's very hippie community.
Okay. So it's like the Venice Beach area, right? Like very kind of hippie skater.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm sure Suicidal Tendencies had a lot to do with developing the image of that particular area, I would say. And this hardcore punk, we're going to call them. Later on, they'll be called crossover thrash. So we'll talk about that a bit. But yeah, would you say hardcore punk at the beginning? Is that, or skater punk?
I would call it hardcore. Their use of, okay, if we can get right into that, I think it's great punk. But I also think that it's got this timeless element about it that almost sort of crosses over into different things. And I'm not going to call it crossover yet, because to me, in my head, crossover was another thing that occurred more with metal. But what did these guys have that were metal? Well, nothing necessarily some great guitar work. So I would call it hardcore punk with a guitarist that knew what the heck he was doing. And then sometime later, then the whole crossover bit happened, and Suicidal did that thing with it. But this album, I would call it punk with really, really good guitar work.
Yeah, I really like the way you put that. And also, I think it's one of the best albums of that time. I mean, a great hardcore album, and they ran with it for a good 5 years.
It was a great record. Great record. Still today, still a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah.
So when you say they ran with it, you mean they toured heavily, right?
Yeah, there was a big gap between the first and that second album when they made that transition. So
they joined the Army was a lot different from this one.
Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of things that went on, but the point being, they released it in late '83, and I think Join the Army was in '87. So there was a good look at the number of times they played in Cleveland during that time between the first album's release and the time that Join the Army came out. I think they played Cleveland maybe four or five times.
Three, four, maybe, yeah. Because I don't know when they first played Cleveland. I always thought that when you and I, Phil, I always thought that when you and I saw them in '85, that might have been their first go of Cleveland.
I want to say it was '84, but I may be wrong. But the Peabody show, I think, was the first time they played Cleveland.
Yeah, that was the first. I mean, I remember knowing that album long before seeing them. Granted, I think I was 13 or 14 at the time, you know.
Yeah.
But I grew up the youngest of four, so I had early exposure to cool shit. And Phil was a really big part of that too. He was at my very first concert ever was a Talking Heads concert that Phil was at, you know, and that was what, in 83, summer of 83 probably. But anyway, I'm 49 now. So I mean, first time seeing Suicidal I've been exposed to them for a good year before that first concert that I saw them. And I don't remember them playing anywhere in like 84. Maybe they did. I don't know. But I remember March of 85 is when we saw them at Peabody's.
Okay. Man,
And maybe they were here. I could call a bunch of friends and get the truth, but they're not, you know.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, Tom, because I mean, wasn't released until sometime in 83.
Yeah.
And they had a single, but then things started happening for them in 84. So we probably wouldn't have gotten it on our radar until 84, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Everything happened on the West Coast a whole lot sooner than things happened by the time it got to Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
And this was back in an era and back in a time where you had to have at least one good, cool record store in your town that would tell you when shit was happening. Sorry, Dave, don't mean to swear.
That's okay.
But you're not
going to drive across the country and make any money to survive if you don't have anything to back it. To your point, so yeah.
You bet. And I just remember like things, even as a punk fan and a hardcore fan back then. It's like, oh man, a bunch of us were skateboarding at this one spot. And it's like, oh my God, there's that one dude that lives like 2 towns over. And I heard that he has like the latest, the newest RKL or Dr. No album. I got to get in touch with him so I can give him a blank tape so he can tape it for me and blah, 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 blah. And you have to make these connections because you just don't go buy these things places. And there's no Hot Topic to buy the shirts or, any of that stuff at either. Yeah, it was a lot of work and it was a lot of fun, as a matter of fact. And you got to know it was the birds of a feather thing. I mean, there were like, 8 people that looked as stupid as I did in my high school. And I know the next city over had about 8 people that looked as stupid as us. And we all got to know each other. We're all skating the same spots and we're all seeing the same bands at night. And you had to seek it out, it was different, than what it is now. But I mean, to that point, now it's, even in like 85, 86, it started gaining steam and gaining momentum, like you were saying, Phil, and things really started taking off,
Mm-hmm.
I did first hear Suicidal Tendencies on the radio, though, surprisingly. I think MMS, I want to say, had something on Sunday nights where they would just play. I think it was pretty short-lived, but they had like a 2 hours thing on Sunday nights where they would play obscure music, slightly obscure music. And it was a few years after the fact. Like I remember I was working at Subway Subs in Eastgate Shopping Center. And I heard Institutionalized on the radio. And I was like, what is that? And I don't know how long it took me to figure out that there was Suicidal Tendencies, but I remember the song just mesmerizing me because it, I hadn't heard it.
It has a cool driving beat. And it's like almost like narrative, in the slow parts and he's telling the story. And then when it picks up, it just takes off, holy smokes. What a memorable song. What a well-written song that is.
Yeah it did have that Pixies Loud Quiet Loud kind of concept where it would juxtapose between those two. You're right, it was pretty complex for a hardcore song.
Yeah for sure.
And it had humor. It had a lot of great stuff.
It's funny. I mean, I equate that to like there are certain movies that I absolutely love, like Goodfellas. I love it because it has this cool narrative behind it, and it's talking about it, and it's telling the story while the story's going on. And Institutionalized as a song, has this really cool, like he's speaking through it and here's what's going on, and mom came in and she started screaming, and it was, oh man, it's just a really, really good story. And then the chorus kicks in, and then it's just like, all right, rip the living room apart, fuck shit up, flip the table, you know what I mean? And then it goes back into the mellow thing again. But
Yeah.
which was a really, really wild structure for a song of any type back then,
Yeah.
Made it a lot of fun.
Recording. Okay, so yeah, as we've mentioned, these early suicidal shows in Cleveland, but this list seems to be incomplete. But this is one of the ones you mentioned, right, Phil? The 87?
Yeah, this was the one that Tom went to. I did not.
Yeah, I was at that one.
We both were at the 85 Peabody show.
Okay.
And
Wow.
we were talking earlier that we think it may have been the first time they played Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah.
They did a couple. Okay. Wow. So the shows we're going to talk about today really predate what Setlist FM has. Huh?
Yeah, because the documentation wasn't very strong back then. So what we know is there was a Peabody show. We're not sure if that was the first one. It may have been. We know that there was a variety theater show on November 30th of 1985. And we know that there was a one in 87 that Tom went to.
Okay.
And all three of those are not on this list. Oh, no, the first two are not on the list.
Okay. So
Right,
we'll get into that today. As I mentioned to you guys, I saw them open for Queensryche at the Richmond Coliseum in '91, which I don't think you can consider vintage. So okay. So you guys, your knowledge goes beyond what Setlist FM has to tell us. So
well, yeah, like to Phil's point, I don't think back then anybody was writing down song by song or even recording the date unless they had like an old ticket stub.
Yeah.
And who has those anymore? I mean, some people do, but not many people do.
One thing, Dave, I want to jump in on, if you notice the picture on the back of the album, one of the things that Suicidal Tendencies was really big on was fan support. And they were one of the few, not a few, they were one of the bands that had a lot of homemade shirts. And, there's a lot of discussion about their gang affiliation early on and stuff like that. But the shirts themselves were all pretty cool. And if you look on the bottom left corner, you see a hat that's with the bill flipped up. And they started making their own hats with the bills flipped up with Suicidal Tendencies written on them. But if you notice, there's Venice 13 there, and that was actually one of the gangs that they were kind of connected with. It wasn't the dude that's in the, I want to say was the original bass player. It wasn't his hat. It was the brother of somebody in the band's hat, and he was in the gang. So that's kind of how they kind of tied it in. And then if you're familiar with Mike, the lead singer, he always had a blue bandana really close to his eyebrows, so really wore it low. And they always had plaid shirts, mostly blue, and they always only had the top buttoned. I don't know if you remember that, Tom. It was like the flannel was buttoned only on the top, and the rest of it was loose, and he had the headband going on.
Yeah. You can see some of these shirts on the left side of the album. Well, actually on both sides of the album of that picture, it says Suicidal Psychos. And that was a group that was, super tight with the bands, gang affiliated, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'm not going to throw the word gang around without knowing if it was a gang or not. I'm not going to say it was a gang. I don't fucking know.
No,
but it was. But I remember when I moved from Cleveland, I moved up to the mountains in Colorado and was looking to rent like a bedroom in a house that was advertised in the newspaper. And I went to the house and they were just like, oh yeah, it's going to be this room. So-and-so stuff is already in here. He's moving out, at the end of the month, but if it's yours if you like the space. And all of his stuff was in there. I don't remember the guy's name. I wish I did. He was really super cool. He had this record collection from God, punk record collection. It was beautiful. And at, I don't know, 10,000 feet above sea level, you wouldn't assume that you would see a great punk record collection quite like this, in the middle of, this vast wilderness. And I was talking to him briefly, and I was like, holy smokes, man, bummer you're leaving, because you and I would crank a lot of great records together. And he was like, yeah, I got to move into this hippie town called Ward, which is a total hippie town in Colorado. And we were talking a little bit about his records, and he was like, oh, I was one of the original Suicidal Psychos. And I was like, really? I was like, was your shirt on the back of that album cover? And he goes, my shirt wasn't, but I had a bunch of shirts, we all hung tough, and those were all my buddies, and those were all my dudes. And I was like, oh, holy smokes. But it didn't really, this was like in '93. So I remember the back of the record cover well, as a matter of fact. But it didn't occur to me until like after that conversation that I looked at the record, and I was like, Suicidal Psychos. I knew it sounded familiar, and then I saw that picture, and like there's like 5 or 6 of these, shirts that say that on, or 3 or 4 or 5 at least that say that on there. So I was like, oh, that must have been like a pretty cool badge of honor that these guys wore, that they're going to put on the back of their white button-up shirts,
And he's
he might be a hippie living in Ward, Colorado still, who knows.
and Mike Moore is sometimes referred to as Psycho Michael, right?
I've heard that. Yeah, I don't know. He acts around. He's still, to this day, I saw them most recently play only a handful of years ago, and dude is all energy still, man. He's all over the place.
Did they still play some old songs?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of songs to choose from these days, obviously, because of all of the things that they've released over time. But they busted out all the classics, and it's got all kinds of energy and enthusiasm associated with it, the way that it used to. So
that was House of Blues.
That was House of Blues. They played with Madball, and I guess the kind of a cool thing, it was one of those things where a buddy of mine had 2 tickets, and he was like, hey, were you planning on going? And I was like, no, I wasn't planning on going, just wasn't planning on going for whatever reason. And he goes, well, here's a couple free tickets. And I was like, well, have fun, let's just check it out. I'll go check it out. And they played with Madball, who's a huge New York hardcore band. Their singer, Freddie, is the younger brother of Roger Moret, who sang for Agnostic Front. And they're still doing it, and they're still killing it and crushing it, and releasing new stuff, and just as heavy and angry as it always has been. And Suicidal came on, they were headlining, and I had no idea until I got there, until they started playing. The band took the stage, and we were sitting, standing kind of close. And I said, I'll be damned, man, their drummer is Dave Lombardo from Slayer. I was like, is that who that is? I might be wrong. And then sure enough, they announced this is Dave Lombardo from Slayer playing drums for us. I like Slayer a lot. Yeah, that's a band that I've always really, really, really enjoyed. So that made it kind of special and fun too,
And he's just kind of widely considered the best drummer, right? Dave Lombardo.
Oh, he's a fantastic drummer. Great drummer. I played in a couple shitty punk bands over the years. I'm not a musician. People can argue all day long about who a great drummer is, but he's known, at least in these circles, for being a really great drummer. I don't I don't know too much about the technique or the skill, but you know, dude makes it happen, and he's pretty darn good at it. So, yeah,
Played with the Misfits too. They're
he did. You're right. You're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah, I forgot.
Another thing I remember about their fashion on top of the bandana and the flannel shirts, but Mike Murr always had his socks pulled up to his knees, right? Like kind of Larry Nance style, right? With the shorts and the socks.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, he had that going a couple of years ago too when I saw him. Absolutely. It's a big statement.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to listen to a bit of a track. Yes, Phil.
So one of the things before looking at the songs and thinking about it, the era, one of the things that's really important was early 80s, still Cold War, don't forget. So Reagan got elected 80, 81, 82, really difficult situation. Actually, my parents sent me to a school in Germany for half a year in 81 because they're both immigrants from Germany, wanted to, get me to experience that. And it was really crazy being there during that time because everybody thought Reagan was going to start World War III. And kids and adults were in my face, like, why does your president want to start a war? And I didn't think about it then, but then when I was over there, I realized that we had a shit ton of army bases in Germany. Germany was the playground for U.S., Russia, if shit was going down. So everything was really intense. Coming back, same scenario in hardcore and a lot of other music, politically intense, but you see it more in hardcore. And Suicidal Tendencies, one of the songs, I Shot the Devil, basically I shot Reagan. So a lot of political charged music in that era. So that kind of filters into the beginning in 83 when they released this album. So just wanted to throw that in there because I thought it was a good historical perspective of the culture of hardcore and punk rock at the time. You're going to see a lot of examples with a lot of bands, MDC and DRI and Fear and a couple other bands really throwing in some politics.
Absolutely. And that's really actually pretty special that you got to see it from overseas too. And the impact, that, the goings on in our country had at the time. I mean, I knew that at the time, it made big waves among, among kids, that listened to punk and stuff like that, that wanted to make a change and wanted to have a voice. There was a whole Rock Against Reagan concert and Let Them Eat Jelly Beans compilation. Holy smokes, the amount of bands that were on there that contributed to just to forward thinking and letting people, letting young kids know that, hey, change can happen and good things are afoot, if you're the voice that actually perpetuates it. But how cool for you, Phil, to have seen that from overseas. How wild. What a trip.
It didn't make sense until I realized that it was so real for them, and coming back, it gave me a much different perspective. It's kind of really
good for you. Nice.
All right, what do you think? We'll play a little taste of the first track, right? Suicide's an Alternative / You'll Be Sorry.
That's a great first track.
Actually, this ties in with our first experience at Peabody's Down Under. Tom, wasn't that how they started the show?
I believe that was the first track. I remember. Yeah, I mean, man, what a surreal moment that whole day was. Not that whole day, but from the moment. So Peabody's, you had to walk up this little ramp up to the person that took your money and gave you the stamp on the hand. And when you were standing at the top of that ramp at that little podium, there was this tiny, like maybe 12-inch by 12-inch window on the right And on the other side of that window was the stage.
Yeah.
So I remember being, that was my first punk show. And I'm sure it wasn't yours, Phil, but it was my first punk show. And I remember like thinking, man, I can't believe that I'm here. This is really freaking cool. Just the energy and the butterflies and the whole thing. It was all exciting until I looked through that window while they were waiting to take my money. And it wasn't Suicidal that was playing when I looked through that window. It was an incredible local Cleveland punk band called the Idiot Humans. And holy smokes, as far as local punk goes, or any punk for that matter, what a great band that was. They were on a compilation called, released by Alternative Press, I think. It was called They Pelted Us with Rocks and Garbage, and they sang a really cool song called Dressed in Green. And if you play that song today, it's still a really, really cool song. It stands the time, the test of time, just like even Suicidal stuff does. But holy smoke, just looking through that window, I kind of had to like creep up on my toes to look through this window, and just saw the people and saw the bodies flying, and then saw the band and saw the whole thing. And was just, I couldn't have gotten more giddy and more excited. I was just like, I don't know what I'm about to get into, but I'm freaking loving what I'm seeing so far. So yeah, and then you pay the guy the money, and then you walk down a ramp to get into the club, and then boom, it all opens up.
And it was all painted black. And I went to the show with Jack, Tom's older brother. So Jack was a good friend of mine in high school, and Tom was a little bit younger, but got to know him really well. And that was one of the first times, besides the Talking Heads, that we were at a similar show. And I think you were in John Patosh's car, that big ass cruiser that he had. I think we hung out with you guys in the parking lot briefly before we went in.
Well, fun fact, Phil. No, Patosh was too young to drive. We all drove in Jack's car, as a matter of fact.
Oh.
And we parked in that lot across the street, and you guys drank beers, and we just kind of sat there and chilled out, afraid to get out, thinking that we were going to get mugged or stabbed. So we had to wait till you guys finished drinking beers so that we could all walk to the club. So yeah, that's how that went.
Nice.
But yes, so that first song with that scream started the show, and it was really intense.
Yeah, it was the first track on the album, and I remember Mike Muir just cruising across the stage like with this magnificent, energetic stride, just getting way into it and getting everybody super amped.
All right, that's good intro. Shall we hear a bit of that?
Please.
All right, let's fire it up. Let's make sure I'm all hooked up here. Yeah, sound share, good. Let's do it.
No, different one.
Oop, yeah, that's
I saw your mommy.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
That's all right.
You're good.
Just a second, folks. All right, wait, let me pause. Okay, apologies for the technical difficulties. Here we go. Track 1, Suicide's an Alternative / You'll Be Sorry.
Suicidal Tendencies, figure blind. What's the point? Figure touch. No one listens. Figure listening. It's all lies. Figure thinking. Instead of feeling. Figure moving. Getting it last. Figure messed out. I want to live. Figure tired. No one cares. Figure blind. And it sucks. On the rich, for your power. On the oppressors, for your government. Full of tyrants, for your school. Done the brainwash, for your music. Stop and start, for your mental. Go on and live, for your time. No one cares, for your life. It's time. Suicidal Tendencies, for your life. It's time, for your turn. No one cares, for your mental. Go on and live, for your living. Gotta die. Suicidal Tendencies. Well, I got a little story to tell about a man said he came from hell. He said Satan's been looking, especially after me. He said Satan's got a paper gonna set my body free. He said power and glory, riches and joy, all in your name, and I'll begin to say, oh yeah. Power in your name, glory and fame, having the gold and all the riches in your head. Oh yeah. He said power, fame, all in your name, all that you wanted, all that you need, all that you want to answer your greed, anything that you ever could need. You sign the paper, that's what you do. Sign the paper and say you do. Anything happening, it's all to you. You sign the paper. Oh, let me see if I got this right. No, I sign the paper and I get all these things. There's gotta be something else happening. I don't know that. Besides, it's like not working. Well, I don't care too much about gold, and I don't really give a fuck about what you've been told, and I don't really care or need anyone looking after me. Besides, I'm a meaner son of a bitch, and that fuck whoever could be.
And take a look at that album cover too, Dave. Don't you think that's pretty cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
I read a little thing that said that it took a long time for them to get that shot for some strange reason, and it was super uncomfortable for all of those guys that were hanging there. Their hands are not free. Their hands are all behind their backs too, and they were just, blood was rushing to their heads. Hurry up and get this thing done. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up.
Oh, I guess you're right. The hands are tied.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh shit! So they must have been waiting for the sunset and the fire, all that shit.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, I heard it was not comfy, not fun.
Really cool shot though.
It's a jungle gym, huh? That's what
It is. It's like the biggest jungle gym. Those guys looks to me like their heads are 5 feet off the ground. That's a gigantic geodesic dome. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen small ones. I've never seen one quite like that.
Yeah, they weren't really around much after our time, based on people getting hurt.
Yeah, I know. That's a big fall from the top of that. If you fall through there as a youngster,
Yeah.
But whatever, it makes you tougher.
What's the significance of the fire in the background? What's supposed to be burning, or?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's a nice touch.
So the people, I mean, the four guys who recorded the album, so you said they toured for what, 4 years afterwards? Was it the same guys all that time? Or?
No. Actually, the lead guitarist was different. What the hell was his name? The guy that toured.
Oh yeah.
The guy that ended up touring was totally different, and he stayed with the band till like '93.
So is he the guy with the Pirates cap? Yeah.
The old Pirates cap from '76. Yeah, Rocky George, I want to say. And so the guy that cut a couple of the demos was different. And there was a ton of musicians that came through the band during the time that they were a band.
They have a long list, yeah.
And I want to say there was like somebody from Metallica.
Rob Trujillo.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Trujillo was part of it. Yeah.
But
so this is who played on this album: Grant Estes, Aviary Smith.
Yeah, Amory Smith and Luigi Mayorga.
Okay. Yeah.
So Louis and Mike were the only ones that Louis and Mike wrote some of the songs, and then the other two were gone before the album was even recorded. And then Rocky George was the lead guitarist with Pirates hat, and he came on after him, and then he stayed for a good chunk of time. And based on some of the stuff I read, he was one of the influences that got them to move over to thrash or metal.
Hey, while you have that zoomed in, so look at the special thanks to right above. The bottom 3 sentences. So when I said that one guy that I met was one of the suicidal psychos, I take that back. He told me he was one of the original Suicidal Boys, and they're mentioned on the bottom, like 3rd line from the bottom there, all the Suicidal Boys and chicks. And then, like Phil says, look at the next line. Everyone that voted us the worst band and biggest assholes in Flipside 82 polls.
Hey, put up that Flipside picture, Dave.
Okay.
That's funny as shit.
That is good shit. So yeah, they were voted worst band, biggest assholes in 82, and then 83 they were voted best band.
Yeah.
And Tom, who'd you say is on the cover of this?
Oh, that's Alice Baggs. She sang for the Bags. She lives in Mexico City now. So Danger House Records was an old brand or an old label back in the day that it came out with 7 inches from a lot of the bands that were so influential, like in the beginnings of punk in '77 in Los Angeles, bands that were playing, you know, clubs like The Mask. The Bags was one of them. The Germs, you know, I don't think that they released anything on Danger House because Joan Jett produced their album. That came out on Slash Records, but the Skulls, huge. The Randoms, the Weirdos, just so many great bands from that time. If I could take a time machine back to a certain era, it would be 1977 Los Angeles to go see those bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danger House came out with a couple good comps. Look them up on your free time and listen to the Bags. The Bags are absolutely freaking amazing. Great band.
I think even Fear started back in late 70s too. There's a lot of great music.
I think
a lot of great hardcore in LA.
Yeah, I think Fear's origin was Texas. Before, you know, I don't know, did they ever ended up moving to the West Coast or not? But like MDC started in Texas and then went to San Francisco and really set up shop there. But yeah, I think Fear was always a Texas band. But yeah, there was just so many incredible bands. The Screamers, holy smokes, the Screamers. They released like nothing that was recorded professionally. The only recordings I ever heard of theirs were things that were kind of bootlegged. What an incredible band they were. There's just so many awesome bands that came out. Like look, the Eyes, they released a great 7-inch called Take a Quaalude Now. And now Charlotte Caffey from the Eyes went on to form or to become part of the Go-Go's, and the Go-Go's just got inducted at the Rock Hall. Yeah. Belinda Carlisle, before she was in the Go-Go's, she was in the Germs.
She was?
Pat Smear from the Foo Fighters was in the Germs, you know. And as a matter of fact, I didn't get to watch it, but I think they recently aired it. Pat Smear's acceptance speech at the Rock and Roll Hall of, you know, induction ceremony. He thanked bands like 45 Grave and you know, a handful of other bands. I need to watch it because I heard that that's what he did. And yeah, if there's anybody that's worthy of a Rock Hall induction, it was out of that band at least. Dave Grohl, sure, fine, whatever. But it was Pat Smear, you know, that I think did the most. But
Pat Smear played with Nirvana too back then.
Well, yeah, he sure did. He sure did. Yeah. And what a cool thing, because of the story that I heard, and I hope it's true because it's just kind of a cool sounding story, but the whole way that he got hooked up with Nirvana was because Pat Smear was working behind the counter at a record store. And Dave Grohl was just like, why are you here? And do you want to be in a band? You know, do you want to tour with us? And he started touring with Nirvana from there, and giving credit to where credit's due. I mean, my God, man, some of the greatest music, at least the music that shaped my life, was stuff that came out of Los Angeles in the 70s, punk wise, and Pat Smear was just always a really good guitarist. And I'm glad that his ship came in, so to speak. I don't know. Is that what it's called? A ship coming in? Maybe not.
He was
Yeah,
with Nirvana when I saw Nirvana in Dayton in '93. Pat Smear was in the band.
Hey,
Yeah, he was. I saw them later that year, and yeah, he was in the band.
That's really interesting, Tom. I wanted to ask you about this because you and I, like I said, I was good friends with your older brother. We knew each other. We've become great friends since then. But early on, you started off a skate punk, a straight edge, and kind of evolved. Can you kind of touch on a little bit about your early part? Because I've never really asked you about when you started off as a straight edge and a surf skate punk.
I'll be honest. The straight edge, the straight edge thing was this blip in time in the middle. Well, our high school friends, and it started off like enjoying like punk and skate rock, like the Faction and the Drunk Engines and Los Olvidados, and a lot of these like bands that were featured by like Thrasher magazine on the skate rock compilations. I loved all of that. There's not a single straight edge thing about any of it. I didn't need to be straight edge, didn't even look to be straight edge. Straight edge just kind of like all of a sudden, as music is changing, crossover bands are happening. Suicidal did a crossover bit. DRI did a crossover bit. Cro-Mags did a crossover bit. While all of that was happening, instead of going to like the whole metal end of things, I started appreciating bands like Minor Threat, which stayed hardcore and were, just one of the greatest bands still, if you ask me. Just musically, just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden their message started, to resonate a little bit, like, oh, okay, well, these guys don't do drugs. And at 16, I wasn't either. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But like, were you into like JFA and all the skate bands?
Yes. Fuck yeah. Love JFA. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I wasn't into skating. So I kind of like, I bailed on JFA the one time and that I could have gone, and I'm kind of bummed I didn't.
Well, let's be honest. I didn't think they were the greatest of musicians. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of stuff that they put out with that I'm just kind of, they're okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I loved who they were at the time. You had sharper bands, better bands, TSOL, for example, DI. Oh my God, DI. Adolescence. Holy smokes, the Adolescence. Just great bands, Yeah. JFA was always all right because JFA was like well respected, in the skate scene, and they were cool. But will I ever rank their records or their songs as like top 20? No, I won't. But I love them for who they are. You know what I mean?
But like when I watched the video of Institutionalized by Suicidal Tendencies the other day, and I didn't realize how skate oriented they were. Did you know them as a skate punk band?
I knew them as dudes that this is gonna sound bad. I knew them as dudes. Well, Brian Brannon was a good skater, and Brian Brannon, as a matter of fact, if you look at their Blatant Localism 7-inch cover, I think that's him doing a hand plant on the cover of that thing. He was a good skater, and their drummer Bam Bam was, from what I understand, a decent skater too. But they always kind of rode this, you had bands like Red Cross that kind of had this like psychedelic, hippy dippy kind of punk feel about them. And JFA always they're always paisley wearing dudes, which I don't give a shit. Wear the paisley, but it was one of those things where I was just like, are you guys, I guess I could never figure out, are you punks or stoners or punk stoners, and do you skate, or are you punk stoners that skate? Or I could never really figure them out. They had their own little thing, man, and And they were from Phoenix. They weren't from Southern California, you know.
What does
So, I mean,
JFA stand for? JFA.
Jodie Foster's Army.
Oh,
Great
I remember that
bands,
one.
you know.
Hmm.
And they put out
It was based on the guy that shot Lennon
Hinckley.
was in love with Jodie Foster.
No, shot
John Hinckley
Reagan.
Jr.
Reagan. You
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Lennon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole straight edge bit, the straight edge thing was it was fine. And then all of a sudden, I liked the energy, I liked the music, and then all of a sudden it grew into like this man.
It got weird, yeah.
All the music was super heavy, and I appreciated that because, you know, I always liked, you know, the heavier hardcore and the metal even too, some of it. But once it started getting, you know, into religion, there were a handful of bands that were really into preaching Krishnaism, like Hare Krishna. Fine, I don't care. You do what you do. But as soon as I started seeing like all of these kids, hey, I'm gonna go to the Krishna temple tonight. I'm gonna do this. I was like, you know what? Go fuck yourself. Rock and roll and religion, in my head, don't belong together.
Yeah.
You can believe what you want to believe, but don't believe it because that guy is telling you that you need to start thinking this way. Once you start doing that, then I think, you know, it's you and I are just different people, and I didn't want to be told what to feel or think or believe. I just wanted to listen to really good music. That's all I did.
Right
so
on.
when straight edge went that way, I was just like, I'm checking out, you guys. I'll see you later. And it was, you know, only a 3-year window that I was really active or, you know, way into it.
And that's a really good point, because what we're talking about is a minute period of time. You know, we talked about Cold War, early 80s, but 83 they released their album and they explode in 84, and they're almost done in the punk scene in 86, 87. You know, the thing that's really interesting to me, looking back and listening to the album and thinking about stuff, two things really jumped out for Suicidal Tendencies perspective that really was incredible in 84. So they released it in 83, and like you, to your point, Tom, bands in hardcore, they don't tour the world, you know, they don't have the means. So in 84, two things happened. Well, they signed with Frontier in 83. They got the album released. They released the single Institutionalized. But the thing that really catapulted them, in my opinion, towards success was Repo Man came out. They got lucky enough to be on the soundtrack, and they released their video Institutionalized, and that became part of the mainstream run on MTV. But Repo Man was such a huge movie for hardcore or for punk rock. It was, I mean, look at the bands that are on there, and Suicidal Tendencies got to be on that.
Yeah, no, the Plugs, underrated, incredible bands. I mean, that's a great soundtrack, fantastic soundtrack. My brother Jack, you know, Phil, you've mentioned him already. He got me I think it was for maybe my 13th birthday. He bought me that record. And,
nice.
Yeah, it's just, you know, there's so much good music on it. Absolutely.
What did the Plugs play?
It was this really cool instrumental thing at the very end of the movie. The car is like glowing like this day glow like thing, and it starts flying in the air. You know, like it starts.
So that's them.
Yeah, great fucking song.
That is a cool fucking song. Yeah.
Yeah. The Plugs are great, man.
And so, who did Pablo Picasso on here? Then was that
that was
Juicy Bananas, I think.
Okay, we'll look. we could.
Because that was a cover, I believe that they.
Yeah. It's Jonathan Richman.
I was going to say Jonathan Richman did the Plugs. Pablo Picasso. But the one article I saw about that, I didn't see him getting credited, so I was wondering if it was a different song. That's why I was asking. But for Suicidal Tendencies to be on that soundtrack is incredible, because it was a great soundtrack for for punk rock fans.
Oh yeah.
And a great
That was good.
movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's I don't know. I'm not sure how long it's been since you guys have seen it. Actually, Deanna and I watched it a couple months ago. I don't know if I've ever had her see it, but we watched it, and we also watched Suburbia for the first time in a long time.
Wow.
So that was kind of
Yeah, that's a great movie too.
so kind of cool throwback. But the one thing that's stuck out with Repo Man that tied into Suicidal Tendencies was in Repo Man, if you remember, they always had those generic stuff. Remember in the early 80s, there was a lot of generic, it was white with like blue trim. And they in Repo Man, they would drink a lot of beer, and they would go to the store and get a 6-pack of beer, and all it said was beer on it. And I'd always laugh about that. And then when I watched Institutionalize the video, sure enough, behind Mike in his house, the cupboards were covered with the white and blue generic foods. It was so fun.
Yeah.
But that's like, that's like the government cheese of the early 80s. That was like the one thing that was there during that small window of time, Tom.
Yep. I remember. I do remember. I said Juicy Bananas, Burning Sensations. I had to just quickly look it up. To the Pablo Picasso song.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, what does Iggy do on here?
The title track at the very beginning. It's actually called Repo Man. It's something that he must have made for the movie. Looking at the Pope through a microscope or whatever it is, Such a I mean, you actually hear Otto's name mentioned in the lyrics. So yeah, it must be a song that he just came up with for the movie.
So huge movie for the time if you're into hardcore or punk rock, and huge opportunity for Suicidal Tendencies to get on the map. Then their video, which was one of the first punk rock videos to be shown on MTV on a regular basis. And Dave, you were talking about Cleveland, that 2-hour window on a weekend night or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget about 120 Minutes on MTV back in the day, on I think Sunday nights between 8 to 10.
Yeah,
and
that was great.
Yeah.
They would show Camper Van Beethoven take the skinheads bowling and shit like that, but they would show some punk rock shit.
Sonic
So,
Youth and stuff like that.
Sonic Youth, yeah. So Suicidal Tendencies all of a sudden went from obscure to huge based on these two things, in my opinion. And 84, 85 was huge for them, and they toured relentlessly based on, obviously, as we've talked about, they even made it all the way to the other side of the country, to Cleveland, at least 4 times during those 2 years.
Yeah, didn't hurt that all of the musicians in that band knew how to play their instruments. I mean, it was just well-crafted stuff. It was really well made.
That's a really good point, Tom, because whenever you think about punk rock and metal, it was really interesting because, like, I always tell my friends I'm not into metal, especially the hair bands in the 80s sucked ass. But I was talking about like growing up in the 80s. I was into hardcore or punk rock when those metal bands were going on. But when you look at punk rock and metal, the only differentiating factor to a certain degree may be the guitar solos or the breakdowns or the bridges, that type of stuff. So, and to your point earlier, Rocky George, great guitarist, and added in those solos and helped push Suicidal to more of a metal direction. And good for them. They made money and they lasted a long time. But
they made a solid go at it. And when, like we'd been kind of alluding to, when a lot of bands were doing their crossover bit, they were able to do it really well because they were halfway there already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So good for them. I mean, they've been able to really make a career out of the whole bit.
But looking back at the album, man, this first album, every single song I looked at and I listened to, I was like, it still holds up. It's still great. A lot of it's silly and funny. A lot of it's politically driven. But Suicidal Tendencies' first album stands the test of time, in my opinion. And it was always my go-to album when I was pissed off or mad. You can say that sometimes it's like depression driven or whatever, but it, like you heard with that first song, it just amps you up, wouldn't you say, Tom?
Oh man. All day long. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's funny when you think about it. I don't know how old Mike Muir was when this came out. Maybe 18, maybe 17, maybe 19. I don't know. But for him to look back at every single one of these tracks in this album, probably, presently, he could look back and be like, damn, we did a pretty darn good job, man. We really made this thing last, and compete with anything that could possibly be coming out today, even still.
So that takes me to the Variety Theater. So we talked about the Peabody show and how influential it was on us, and how the album's great, and from a hardcore or punk rock perspective, it stands the test of time. And then I think it was at the end of '85, and November 30th, '85 is when I went to see him the second and last time at the Variety Theater. And Dave, did you ever see shows at the Variety?
No. What neighborhood was that?
It was West Side, Lakewood.
Okay.
So it was close to the Cleveland thing. And so here's the flyer to it. Alternative Productions, Alternative Press backed it. Knife Dance, Numbskull, The Guns, great bands. Violent Suburban Marriage actually was kind of a funny band.
These are Cleveland bands, Phil? These other bands?
All Cleveland, yeah.
Okay.
Tom's got more knowledge of the other bands. The only thing I wanted to throw in before I went to Tom for explanations of the other bands was Violent Suburban Marriage. The one thing I remembered about that band that night was that it was a father-son tag team with a bass player. So the father was a guitarist, and his son, I think was 16 at the time, was a drummer. So it was really cool. Local band. And one of their first shows, obviously, but it was. I talked to the kid afterwards and the dad. It was really neat. So, Violent Suburban Marriage, that's where they were. But Tom, do you have anything about those other three bands?
Sure. Holy shit. Yeah.
This Numbskull gave me the one of their stickers at the Peabody Suicidal Tendencies show, like the year before.
Yeah, they were very old. Yeah, they'd been around for a long time. Numbskull did not have a guitar player. They had a singer, a bass player, and a drummer, and that was their whole outfit. And then they released like a demo and played a lot of local shows. I remember seeing them a number of times, and they were always really good. And then years later, maybe like late 90s, no, probably like early 2000s, maybe like actually around 2000, I played in a local band called the Standing 69s, and then Numbskull did a reunion show, and we played with them, and they still sounded great. They were fucking awesome, actually.
Very cool.
Yeah, they was still a bass player and a drummer and a singer. That was it. Nothing else. But it was a hoot. Knife Dance was a great band. They were fronted by a dude named Tom Dark, who I still bump into, pretty regularly, or at least here and there. Great guy. He went on to be in other bands called Stepsister. He's in another band these days. Shit, he'd kill me. The name escapes me, to be honest. Great guy. Can't say enough good things about him. Tom Dark is his name. The Guns. Oh my God, that was a band. That was, if you ask me, one of the best local Cleveland punk bands that ever existed.
Wow.
Dave Araka was the drummer. He was an old friend of ours. He died at a young age in his mid-20s. Had an aneurysm, sadly. Just a really cool dude. Came out of the blue. Great local tattoo artist also. Other dudes that were in that band were Kevin and Bob Reese. Kevin Reese sadly also passed away. Heroin addiction, I believe. And his brother Bob Reese, only a handful of years ago, also passed away from suicide, sadly. Not, yeah, I don't have great, fun stories to tell about the recent goings on with the Guns, but boy, were they incredible. What an awesome band they were. Also, they were listed on that compilation that I mentioned before called They Pelted Us with Rocks and Garbage. They sang a song called I'm Not Right, and you'll find it on YouTube. Look up the Guns, I'm Not Right, and you'll be blown away. It was recorded in the early 80s and is just incredible. Violent Suburban Marriage. How about this? I play in an old man beer league hockey team. And one of the dudes, this is probably like about 6-7 years ago, on a team that we played against. I was talking to him after the game, and he was just like, oh, we started talking about music somehow, and he was in Violent Suburban Marriage. He was a goalie for this team, and dude collapsed on the ice, and they had to revive him, but he lived. And I think there was like some kind of blood clot or something like that, but they managed to revive him. From what I understand, he's doing fine. I don't think he plays hockey anymore. Man, you asked me about these bands. I wish I had like fun stories to tell. As it turns out, as we're going through these things, I realize that we're all just old people,
Yeah, that's cool, man. So
yeah, but all of them played great music. I remember Violent Suburban Marriage as a band, just like you were saying, just yeah, it was
local shit.
Fun time to be for local music in Cleveland, Ohio.
I wish there was a price on here.
What's that?
I wonder how much it cost. I wish there was a price on this flyer.
Oh man, that was probably $8 tops.
Yeah. With 5 bands, yeah, I would say 6 or 8. Yeah.
It was. I remember the Peabody show. The year before this one was $6, I think. I remember the T-shirts were $6.
Yeah.
Actually, the show might have been. No, I think the show was probably about $6.
Yeah.
It was funny. I mean.
There was a time around that era we boycotted the Cramps because they were charging $10.
Yeah, I know, right? I remember the Dead Boys doing a reunion while still Baders was still alive. I remember they were doing a reunion show at Peabody or Fantasy, and I was like, you know what? You think I'm gonna pay $11? Go screw yourself. You know what I
mean? Yeah. So Variety Theater, Dave, West Side, Lakewood, old. I'm sure it was a whole different type of theater back in the day, but in the 80s it was kind of falling apart. There was plaster all over the place, and it was perfect for punk rock because it was decaying, right? And the cool thing about it had the old wooden seats. The floor was angled down. But the cool thing that they did was they ripped out the first 10 rows of seats. So there was kind of a flat surface for people to like a mosh pit area. So it was perfect for punk rock shows. And Tom, I'm not sure if you remember, they had the security guard. I thought he was a joke. Yeah, Lizard. And he was like I think Jack, your brother, was saying that he would do shows for fun and like provide security so other cops wouldn't hassle the kids.
Yeah. He didn't get paid to do any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, I don't even think he was a cop. He just wore a cop uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure maybe he was at the time at one time. Yeah, but so the Variety Theater was a really interesting place to see shows. So the Meatman and a bunch of other shows there, but Suicidal was pretty cool.
Missing Persons there, I saw there, and
Violent Femmes I saw.
The first stage dive I ever did was while Toxic Reasons was playing. That's a Dayton band.
Yeah.
They played with Government Issue. That was there was all kinds of really good shows.
So we have some images of the Variety we could look at, right?
Okay.
All right. Give me a sec here.
So the Variety Theater show was the second time, Tom, that I saw them, that you weren't there. But Dave, and for other people, Lakewood, I forgot the street. I'm not sure if it's
Cleveland, technically, Lorraine Road.
Oh, is it Lorraine and Cleveland? All right.
Yeah.
Really close to the edge of Lakewood.
Right.
But old theater that I want to say opened up in 1922. But when you walked in, you had that old school look to it, and it was kind of falling apart in the 80s. And if you take a look at the next picture, Dave,
Okay.
it
Yeah,
should
so this
show.
is June 2021. So this is, it's still, they at least still have this.
Still there.
Okay.
There was an award that was given, or a grant, let's just say, that was given. I don't know who put it on, but I think it involved the guys that did the shit. What's the name of that TV show where the guys like drive around and they're looking for antiques and barn finds and stuff? Whatever that show is called that everybody likes.
Yeah.
Frank and Mike, American Pickers. I think that those guys had something to do with this location being chosen to be a recipient of a grant to help revitalize it.
Wow.
How cool.
So I haven't seen any current pictures of what it might look like on the inside, but yes, they put some money into it and they did some things. And because it was in complete disrepair up until only a few years ago.
Very cool.
It's cool. It says believe there, right? Believe.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
want
that's
to
a
talk about this?
Cleveland motto thing. We say that about the sports teams too.
So Dave, if you walk up the aisleway to the bathrooms from the venue, you get to this point right now where you're looking at, and the dark spot in the center back, that's where they had folding tables, and that's where the bands sold their merchandise. And the cool thing about Suicidal Tendencies is Mike would sell his own shit. Really cool guy. And I remember during the Variety Theater show, you know, because like Tom said, there's 5 bands, so we were there for a long time. And I was asking Mike about, hey man, when are you going to have another album? You know, because it's been a couple of years. And he's like, yeah, we're working on it. Maybe next year. And then he said something really interesting that kind of caught my ear as I was walking away. He's like, yeah, and if it's going to be metal, we're going to break up. I was like, okay.
Right, dude.
and you know, and sure enough, it was metal, and they, you know, evolved and got away from hardcore, and good for them, man. They've milked it for obviously the entire time and made a career out of it, because you know, we talked about hardcore. You don't make a lot of money in that game, so based on all those crossover bands like the Cro-Mags and DRI that we talked about. So that was the Variety Theater back then, and I think there's another shot of the theater itself. Yeah, and the cool thing, it wasn't that fucked up when we were there. Like the pillars on the left-hand side that you're looking at, they weren't in that disarray or decay.
Well, that picture there is from the second floor. You can see that there's like
the balcony?
Yeah, that's a balcony shot.
Oh yeah, good call.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the first floor is similar.
I mean, it looks the same all the way around.
Wooden chairs and all that stuff. You're right, Tom. But the one thing that's really interesting about the first floor, though, Dave, is they did rip out the first 10 rows, and the floor was relatively flat still down there. So it was a perfect venue for hardcore. You know, you had like a mosh pit area, or you could sit in some chairs or get away from that stuff. So it was really cool. And I don't think they ever opened up the balcony during those shows.
The only time that I was ever in the balcony was after they were done having shows there. For 1 year, they opened it up as this shitty haunted house. and you know, you had to walk up through the balcony and get spooked by. They didn't even really have like real people, like adults, dressed up as like monsters. It was like kids and shit. It was really dumb. As a matter of fact, this is really funny. As right behind this row of seats, you had to walk through there. It was all dark and strobe lights and stuff. I'll get back to I'll get off this tangent here in a second. But there was we could see, as I was there with a couple of my buddies, John Paytosh, Phil, you know John.
Yeah.
Real card, total character. We were like 16 or 17 or 18, maybe 17. God, maybe 16. Walking through there, and up ahead we see there's this coffin on the ground, and this group of people ahead of us, are walking past, and we hear them scream. It was because this coffin lid that was laying on the ground opened up, and this little 11-year-old kid dressed as Dracula popped out of it. And so we were walking past it, and just as we were approaching the coffin, our buddy John who saw what was going on up ahead before we even got to it. He goes, "Hey, you guys go on ahead. I'm just going to take a piss in this coffin real quick." And he lifts the coffin lid, and then this little kid who's dressed as Dracula slams the coffin lid back down again and won't let him open it. But John knew that it was like this kid dressed as Dracula inside this coffin anyway, so did it to mess with him. But it was that was the only time I was upstairs, was when they had it was after the shows were over, and they turned it into a really, really lame haunted house for 1 year.
One other thing I thought of about this show, the Suicidal Tendencies show at the Variety Theater, this was the first of 2 shows that I lost my glasses, and when I was in grade school and high school, I augmented between contact lenses and glasses, and there was a couple periods in high school and college that I would wear both or whatever. So I was wearing my glasses at that Variety Theater Suicidal Tendencies show, and I was down in the mosh pit, and I got an elbow to the face, and my glasses, I remember, went flying, and I was like, oh, fuck. And it was a big deal if you got them broken, My parents were going to kick my ass. So I dove to the ground and was frantically looking for them. And
Velma and Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, man. Luckily, I grabbed them, and it was kind of cool because back then, you watch out for each other, and somebody was lifting me up at that point to get me up off the ground in the mosh pit. And the second time I lost my glasses was at a Fugazi show in DC, a free show outdoors by the mall in DC. And Dave, I don't think you were there, but I know Fox and I went. I want to say Coogan went with us. But same thing, we were up front, and I had my glasses, and mosh pit, got hit, and my glasses went, and I had to do a stage dive kind of like down to the ground. And it was, grassy area, but luckily I found them also. So both times, I can't believe that somebody didn't fucking step on my glasses.
You got lucky.
But, first one was at the Variety Theater. And Tom, we were talking a couple weeks ago. Tom and I still talk with a couple other guys about all kinds of stuff, Cleveland. And we were talking about the Variety Theater and the last shows. Dave, I guess you never went to the Variety Theater because you're East Side?
No. When did it close?
Well, it was, I saw the Violent Femmes, and Tom, we were talking, I think it was Motorhead that was the last show. Because Violent Femmes
was a misprint. Are you talking about the plaster falling from the ceilings while Motorhead was playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody printed that was the last show was where that occurred, but no, that actually occurred in like 84, and we had seen so many shows after that incident. I don't know what the last show was. I don't remember seeing a show past 86 there. 87 maybe?
Yeah, it was 87, I want to say, and I know that the Violent Femmes was the last time I saw a show there, and I want to say it was the weekend after the Violent Femmes. And I thought it was because of noise, the neighbors complained again or whatever, and it was like, like I said, it was in decay anyway after a lot of punk shows. And I remember that Violent Femmes show because we were like saying happy birthday to the lead singer. So that was, a long time ago. But anyway, the next show I thought was the final one, and I couldn't remember which one.
I mean, it could have been a Motorhead show, but it wasn't the infamous plaster falling from the ceiling show. That one happened before, but
yeah.
That was a loud band. I've seen Motorhead before, and my ears rang for 5 days. It wasn't at that venue, but whoa, man, they put out a lot of wattage. There's no doubt.
You weren't at the Cleveland Public Theater for Black Flag, were you in '85?
July 20th, 1985.
upstairs with no fucking windows,
Yeah,
hot as balls.
shit, 100 degrees. Yeah, I remember that one.
How did I not see you at the show? I saw Peter, your cousin, at that show.
Jack was there. I was there. You were there. We're all there.
Maybe I just don't
Eric
remember.
Wright was there. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we're all there.
Okay, cool. Very cool. And so tell me about the last time you saw the Tendencies, which was at the Bohemia.
Oh, the Bohemia? Oh, that show. That was like 87, I think.
Okay. So it was on their tail end.
No, I saw. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, they're still going. I mean, I saw Suicidal like 5 years ago. But
Well, I meant from the scene was kind of
yeah, from the tail end of what was good. Yeah. Not that what they do today is not good. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But,
So where was this place at?
it was on West 14th Street in Tremont. So Cleveland neighborhood.
I say Ignatius.
Not far. So yeah, what St. Ignatius is like West 29th and Lorraine, right? So that's Ohio City technically.
Okay.
If you travel a little further south, like Michael Simon's first restaurant, Lola, was down in the Tremont area. Tremont wasn't shit back then. It was a great place to get mugged or robbed. There really wasn't a whole lot happening. And then it really started becoming something fun, like where the movie A Christmas Story was filmed. That house is in Tremont.
Okay.
And when they filmed, there wasn't anything happening down there. And that's kind of off like, a couple side streets and tucked away and stuff. So it wasn't like, toward like where all of the real action is, but it's all kind of built up, and it's all actually a really, really fun area right now. But the Bohemia was this, I don't know what it used to be. I want to say it was like some crazy ass, weird ass bathhouse or some shit. I have no idea. It was like this really big old building that was kind of in disrepair, like the Variety Theater was, and it had a separate building that was attached to it that had like this large stage, and like a maybe it was a venue that might have held like 800 people or something, if I had to guess. Wasn't tiny, and it wasn't big, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You had a bar that was, off of the main room. You had to walk through like a hallway and a weird room to get to the bar area.
Was the floor flat?
It was flat. Yeah, one level.
The way you talk about it, it reminds me of the Lithuanian club in Dayton where we saw Brainiac, and it was just, it was obviously a club hall and flat floor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I'd never been there. I don't know about that. But if you guys, and I know you've been to the Beachland Ballroom, the main ballroom. Yeah. I mean, picture a room like that.
Okay.
It looked like that, even to the point where you had to walk out of that room to go grab a beer because the bar was in a separate room.
Yep.
So yeah, I remember I saw that show there, and then I also saw the Cro-Mags play there too, on their second go through Cleveland.
You were the one that turned me on to the Cro-Mags.
What's that?
You were the one that turned me on to the Cro-Mags.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No shit. Yeah, that first album of theirs was a ripper for sure.
Yep.
They toured with GBH. I missed that. I was in summer school. No. Oh, man. I was 14. I missed that show because, dude, looking back, I was grounded once in my life ever. And it was when the Meatmen played at the Variety Theater. I wasn't allowed to go. I was 14. Jack
and I went.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember. And I was supposed to come home and stain the redwood like furniture, the patio furniture, but instead went to our buddy's house who had a really sweet quarter pipe. So I stayed there and skated his ramp all day long, and then came home like 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. ready to go to the Meatmen show. And Mom was just like, "You're supposed to do this. You're not going anywhere." It was like the one and only time I was ever grounded. Anyhow, And then shortly after, oh no, it was like a year or so after that, I got in trouble for something else, something stupid. And she said, you can't go to both shows this weekend, but I'll let you go to one show. And one was Cro-Mags, the Bohemia, or the Bad Brains at the upstairs of the Fantasy Theater in the little room. And I was like, man, I really like those Cro-Mags a lot. I really like the Bad Brains a lot.
Sophie's choice.
If I have to choose, so I went to the Bohemia Cro-Mag show. And then, of course, missed out on a great Bad Brain show because there's no such thing as a bad Brain show. But it was Bohemia was a decent venue. It sounded really cool. Somebody I know actually still has the audio recording of that Cro-Mag show, at least. But the Suicidal show, that was crazy. It was packed. It was filled with people. I remember that. They tore it up just like they did, when I saw them at the Fantasy. I missed that variety show, but it was a cool venue, but it only lasted like a small blip in time, man. It was closed the next year, I think, for some reason. No idea.
Wow.
Why.
Like the Babylon a Go-Go. Do you guys remember that?
I saw a lot of great bands. I saw the Dickies there. Saw the oh man, 7 Seconds. So many good bands.
We did a previous episode of this where we talked about the Primus show there where the floor started caving in. And like everybody had to leave mid-show, and then the club shut down shortly after that.
Yeah. That was a fun spot. That was a really fun spot.
Hey, Tom, was it you or Jack that saw Black Flag at the Pop Shop before it burnt down?
Oh, that was Jack. Yeah, that was 84, I think.
Yeah, my war tour.
Yeah.
Dave, I don't remember seeing anything at the Pop Shop, but it was a basement bar similar to Peabody's.
You guys have a lot going on the West Side I didn't know about, right? So I didn't, but I didn't really start going to show. When you say 80s, like I graduated elementary school in 86. But Tom, you're the same age as me. I'm also 49. But I think you just started going to stuff way before I did.
Yeah, older brother dragged me along, or maybe I was asked to get dragged along. Yeah, he would have left me at home if I didn't bother him.
And Tom had 3 cool cousins that lived a mile or 2 away from him too, that dragged him around too.
Yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah, so that was great.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes us to the end of 85, and the one thing I wanted to talk about at the end of this was not only how quickly did Suicidal Tendencies erupt in the scene in 83 and 84, but how they kind of fell apart in a way, just like kind of the hardcore scene, because there was a show in LA. They got banned. There was a show, I forgot what the venue was, but they were in late 85, they played a show in LA where they're from, and they got banned from LA because their fans ripped out and what I read, 10 rows of seats. And in my opinion, it was like the Variety Theater, except they didn't do what they should have done in the first place, was create a dance area or a mosh pit area. And I think their fans were trying to do that for them in a way. So I thought it was a justified thing, but whatever. So they got banned from playing in LA. And then Suicidal Tendencies got put on Miami Vice. And what happened was Institutionalized was a video, and it was famous, and it was a big thing. And then Miami Vice was the biggest show on TV in 85. And in their second season, at the end of the season, they threw Suicidal Tendencies on stage in a scene, and it wasn't a punk rock show. It was like a new wave band bar. I'm sorry, skinny ties and chicks.
Miami
dancing.
Vice. Yeah.
It was Miami Vice, exactly. Yeah. And I remember, I swear to God, man, I remember in high school watching it with some buddies and just like cringing because I knew I loved the band, and they just looked like the biggest douchebags, and I'm like, oh, this is it for them. They're done. So they kind of like went downhill in my opinion from a punk rock standpoint there. And then the whole scene kind of changed, Dave, in like 86, 87. I mean, D Boone died late 85. Dead Kennedys broke up early 86. Black Flag broke up in 86. And I mentioned earlier, Tom, the whole straight edge scene, as you know, kind of got weird and fucked up. And then skinheads were more prevalent. And then our buddy Eric Wright, I remember after one show, I can't remember the show though. We were walking out, and we're in the parking lot, walking to the car, and Eric Wright was like, "True skanking's dead." Kids at that point started throwing elbows and became more violent. The punk rock scene kind of evolved, and it got different and weird. So all that stuff thrown together was the same time as Suicidal Tendencies kind of were changing. So it was just a really weird thing. Cro-Mags, their first album, they came and went in the hardcore scene. And like I said, all that stuff kind of came and went, and it was like just in an instant, it was gone and it changed. What are your thoughts, Tom?
Well, I mean, things evolve, right?
Yeah.
And as things evolve, things they take on new, I guess, lives. The same way we can talk about punk bands going hardcore, crossing over into metal or whatever. That second Cro-Mags album, Best Wishes, I didn't like it when it came out. That's because John Joseph, their singer, wasn't part of it, and Harley Flanagan was doing the singing, and it just had this new vibe and all this. And bands were just finding new ways to do things. So apply that same thing to old, like, LA or Southern California punk, Circle Jerks, Bad Religion even. Bad Religion was a really good punk band before anybody had even heard of them,
Never thought about it, yeah.
They were always kind of melodic, and their singer Greg Graffin was always highly educated. He still has, obviously a PhD, and last I hear, he's still a professor somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you read his lyrics, like, he's actually trying to teach kids like new vocabulary, like, let's smarten you up a little bit. That's how I always interpreted it, because the dude is fucking smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, they went the super melodic way, and they've always kind of had this melodic bit about them. But even still, there were punk bands that we all love, like TSOL. TSOL released Hit and Run. Did you ever listen to that record?
Yeah.
It's really not that good. It's not old TSOL. It's kind of glam, and LA glam scene was huge at the time.
They were on Headbangers Ball. I remember.
Yeah, they were. And
like
Jack Grisham wasn't part of that. Joe Wood was singing for them at that time. But Jack Grisham, he didn't leave the band, I don't think, because he didn't want to be glam. He started his own glam band called Tender Fury. And to be honest, as far as glam goes, and it was glammy. And if you look at the album, the back album picture, like the photos of all of them, it's super glammy. He's got the hair done and the whole bit.
Well, like Junkyard. How about Junkyard?
Oh, dude, Junkyard, great example. They're playing here next week, as a matter of fact. And Brian Baker from Minor Threat was and playing guitar for them. He's not now, I'm sure, but yeah, like this whole glam thing happened. So I mean, things evolve, right? And it doesn't always. I guarantee you, if Minor Threat had stuck around past 83, they would have gone that way too.
Yeah.
Government Issue would have gone that way too. Everybody.
Good example. Yeah, good example. Yeah, you're right, man. But I also equate it to the fact that as a hardcore band, you had to ask people where you could sleep for the night. You didn't get any money. And no fault to anybody. I mean, good luck for Suicidal Tendencies for turning metal and making money. I mean,
yeah.
I think that the situation was that the way. And Dave, I was talking about Get in the Van, Henry Rollins' book. He really does a great job of talking about the life on the road of a punk rock band in the early 80s. And if you haven't seen this book, really go and find it. It's an incredible book, and it was actually just re-released. And actually, Henry signed a couple copies for me. So look on his website and get that. But it talks about his life with Black Flag and about how they barely survived and barely made any fucking money because you're not into hardcore to make money. And understandable that the Cro-Mags, DRI, Suicidal Tendencies all kind of evolved and found their niche in a great different venue and made a career out of it.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder, I mean, why do bands evolve? And I think that it's just, you know, maybe it's based on money. I'd like to think that, you know, they're just changing it up because their tastes are changing. They just want to, you know, because it's in their heart that they want to be more metal. It's in their heart that they want to, you know, sound a little bit different. I get that, you know.
But when
Gorilla Biscuits is one band, they have a song about that, and one of their lines is, "Why play for us if your heart's not in it?" You know, and it's all about making a transition. So I applaud anybody who has to, you know, who wants to enjoy what they do and keep doing what they do. Once you start losing touch with what matters and you're doing things just to go through motions, then you're not doing it for the right reasons anymore. So if that's the way you go, then that's the way you go. And
but when Suicidal went metal, it wasn't glammy, right? Like I
there
would
was
say,
not glammy.
like Can't Bring Me Down. Yeah, it was more, you know, closer to thrash than any sort of.
Yeah,
like it was different from what TSOL were doing, right?
Very different,
Yeah.
very different. Yeah, very different. Less for show and more for just ballsy energy. I'm gonna fuck this place up kind of energy, you know.
Right on.
I remember,
Which I applaud.
I want to say it was at Flash. It was at Flashes, but I want to say it was the Fugazi show.
I was at that one.
Yeah, I passed out from heat exhaustion at that show, and my friend carried me out. But I saw most of it though. But it was right. It was super hot.
There was a lot of people in there. Yeah.
So I want to say it was that show that before Fugazi came on, they just played that the sound system played Can't Bring Me Down, and everyone went crazy, right?
Oh, I don't remember that, but probably
could have been a different show, but I just remember being
right around the same time.
It was. And I just remember being impressed that people are going crazy just to that song being played on the system. Like, I mean, you know, that song was pretty cool at the time, you know?
Oh yeah, no, that was a really, really big song for Suicidal for sure. That was the Lights Camera Revolution album, I think. I'm pretty sure, as a matter of fact, it must have been the Lights Camera Revolution album. Yeah, that was a really big record for Suicidal. A lot of copies, I'm sure.
You guys got me to crack a beer at like noon.
Well, it's 10 p.m. here, so
did that, baby.
Yeah.
Listen to that album. You are so pumped up. If that first album pumps you up, man.
Oh my
to
God.
this day is great.
Yeah.
I always like that track, I Want More.
Yeah. Don't want to work for Golden Arches. I want more. Yeah.
If you fast forward through the album, Dave, I swear to God, every song is like, yeah, that's still a good song. And you catch yourself realizing, God damn, it's a good album.
Yeah. I found it in I lost touch with it. I had it on vinyl way back in the day. And then I moved out to, remember I was talking about when I lived out in Breckenridge up in the mountains in Colorado, looking for that apartment where one of the Suicidal boys lived in. And while I was at Safeway supermarket in Silverthorne, Colorado, they had like this bin of cassettes. And I was like, I got a cassette player. See what's going on in here. And there was nothing but junk and nothing but junk and nothing but junk except for Suicidal's first album. Which I think they only did one pressing on cassette in like '83, and that was it. And I was like, wow, kind of weird that, I'm way up in the middle of nowhere and I see this thing, I'm going to buy this thing. And man, I wore that tape out in the car and, brought it into the This is like 93 is when I bought it. And
It
holy
becomes
smokes.
therapeutic.
Oh, it was just so good to get reconnected with it.
Yeah.
It was just awesome, and it's timeless. And I still listen to it here and there today, and it's still timeless. Good record.
Yeah. Dave, thanks for getting us together about this, because this is a great album.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much. A lot
Absolutely.
of fun to talk about.
absolutely. Phil, you wanted to say something about slipping in?
Oh yeah. So since this is a hardcore episode, and I just wanted to share with you guys one last story. So my dad was a salesman, and growing up, I was a douchebag punk rock kid, and I wanted to put a bumper sticker on my dad's car, and he's like, this is my car for business, but I'll let you put one bumper sticker on it. So I don't know if it was at Chris's Warped Records. I think I got a black and white copy of this cover as a bumper sticker, and I put it on my dad's bottom left bumper, and I was so proud of it and so pumped that he let me do it. But looking back, what a dick! What an asshole I am! Why did I do that to my dad? I mean, my dad must have been like, "Oh God."
Because you wanted his car to look cool, man.
You had his best
I'm
interest.
sure you borrowed the car every now and again. You wanted to look cool driving that car.
Absolutely, totally borrowed it, totally drove it. Yeah. But man, at retrospective, what a dick am I?
You decided what his best interests were.
Yeah,
Hey, wait, did he take that sticker off?
never took it off, dude.
Well, that's a sign of a really cool fucking dad.
Totally.
I'm sure he knew it was there.
Yeah, that was his car that he took on business trips and met with clients and took to lunch. Is that a black flag sticker? Yes, it is.
Yeah, Phil, you were giving him street cred to his peeps.
Yeah,
Oh, totally.
might have helped close a big sale or something. So they used to do ads for this black flag with the Raymond Pettibone. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Pettibone artwork. So I used to read like Hit Parader, the metal magazines.
Yeah.
And somehow they had black flag ads in the back, and I didn't know what the music looked like. I always thought I didn't know what the music sounded like it, but the artwork always intrigued me. Like, what do these guys sound like? Right? Because they wouldn't be mentioned in the magazine at all, but there'd just be a small ad with black flag and the artwork in the back.
I absolutely love Ray Pettibone artwork. So many flyers, so many shirts, so many album covers, not just Black Flag. He was actually Greg Ginn, the guitarist from Black Flag's brother.
Mm.
And man, I have a really cool Black Flag shirt. I haven't seen in a while. It's got to be somewhere, but it's got cool Ray Pettibone artwork on it too. Like two hippies talking to each other, high on LSD, and there's a dead chick in between them. And the one hippie saying to the other one, he's like, "Randy, if you think you're Jesus Christ, then why not resurrect Janie?" And then there's this like chick it's really fucked up artwork, man. It is strange artwork.
Twisted.
But yeah, that dude knew how to stir up the pot just with pictures.
Well said.
Looks like that's it for my slideshow. All right. What do you think? You guys have we could talk about what track to play going out. Let me pause it. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us again. This was episode 51 of Blown Speakers. Phil the Thrill Winkelmann, Cleveland boy coming in from Columbus, Ohio, and Tom Gray coming in from Cleveland. Yeah, great talk today. Phil, did you want to introduce the song we're going to go out on?
Just another great example of Suicidal Tendencies on their first album, fast and full of energy. I think that's all there needs to be said. Thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks, Dave.
Hey, thanks, Phil. Thanks, Dave. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's go out with Won't Fall in Love Today. Good night, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving weekend.